Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunatu Saha Viryam Karavavahay Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapi Yat Sarvam Trailokyam Sachidacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Anjananandanam Veeram Janaki Shokanashanam Kapisham Akshahantaram Vande Lanka Bhayankaram. So, as per my understanding, I think we stopped with Dashrath passing away. King Dashrath, right? Ramchandraji was exiled, and we spoke about Karma in Dashrath Maharaj's the story of Shravan Kumar. Is that where we stopped? So, moving ahead in the story. So there's a line here where Sage Vasishta says that Dashrath Maharaj has 4 amazing sons. And it's like one of these ironies of life that none of them are there at this point in time when he's done. And so often we'll see that people try to plan for that. We'll find many Indian families, right? And this, I would like to say it's less nowadays, but for some families, not. This desperate need to have a son. Why? Because it's the son that will look after the family, and it's the son that, especially this, will do the last rites. Even if the son doesn't look after the family, it's the son that does the last rites and then continues to do the Shraddha pujas after that on a regular basis. And so this need that they need to have be taken care of. We're taken care of if these pujas are done for us. And it's true in the sense that pujas do help the soul on the journey. And even afterwards, the regular being done helps the soul. And so you can understand, like, insecurity. We want guarantee that we'll be taken care of. Even while we're alive, right? We want enough money so that we are guaranteed we'll take care of. Or we make connections so that we can rely on those corrections when we need things. But without, and sometimes with so much planning, it goes wrong. Like you don't get what you want. like Dashrath Maharaj, of course, wanted an heir to the throne, but the idea of got 4 sons. People desperately want one so that this can happen. Here he has 4. Neither of them, none of them are there. And then sometimes you'll see like people have no sons. And then miraculously, everything just works out. Someone beautiful is there to do their pujas for them. Does it with so much sincerity and love. And so there's this, in this section, there's this line that comes a few times about how some things are fate. Like even though we say there's free will, there is free will, but there's also the hand of destiny. And the hand of destiny is created by us, by the actions we do. And then once it's done, it's done. Like the example given is the arrow that's been shot from the bow. Now you can't change the direction of the arrow. It continues in the momentum at which it was pointed when it was shot. And so certain things are definitely destined, and one of them is death. And pretty much everything about the death is destined. When, where, how. Birth is significant, and death is as significant. And we see this, right? We definitely see this in the passage of life. Okay, so let's go to the story. So Dashrath Maharaj has no one there. And so he immediately, Ramchandra ji's been exiled to the forest. So he called Bharat back. Bharat and Shatrughan are in KK's maternal home with her brothers, and he had gone for a visit. And it is said that in Tulsi Ramayana, there's a lot of sentiments. And so Bharat can't sleep suddenly. And he has this nagging feeling something's wrong. And then there's also, like we saw in the Mahabharata, there's the signs of omens. He started seeing a lot of very terrible omens. And so he was very restless that something's wrong. And his mind is already thinking something's not quite right. And then this messenger has come who has rode the horse through the night and through, like with no break whatsoever, saying you've been summoned back to Ayodhya immediately. Guru Vasishtha has sent the message. Why? There's no information. The messenger's been clearly told not to say that Dashrath Maharaj has passed away. Just bring Bharat back. And also, like, he could not have done the journey if grief got the better of him. And so you see Sage Vasishtha's foresight here. And also then he'll have 100 questions. Then you're going to have to answer those questions. And the situation in which Dashrath Maharaj has died is horrendous. You don't want to sit there like he's sitting. And then, of course, she's in KK, I think is the name of the town. They're going to hear all this juicy gossip. So no, don't give any details. Just tell him, come back. And so the messenger is very good and says exactly that. And already Bharat has been restless, and so he rushes. As fast as the messenger rode to him, he has written. The minute he enters Ayodhya, he knows without a doubt something's wrong. Now, Ayodhya was this lively, festive city. It's like, Hong Kong, buzzing and bustling, and like during protest, it was ghost town. This isn't the city. And so Ayodhya is like, streets are empty and people are walking with their faces down. And there's this heaviness, and we feel it, right? Whenever somebody's passed away, when you walk into that house, you can feel there's this heaviness of grief. But all of Ayodhya has this heaviness of grief. And so the grief is one. Ramchandra ji got sent away, so Ayodhya was already in grief. And now Dashrath Maharaj has died. And so it's like, see how terrible, and I remember when I first started the Ramayana, I had mentioned to you all that in this new world of WhatsApp language, reading poetry was like, oh my gosh, they take so long to make a point because you have to meander through all this poetry. And then now that I've gotten into the Ramayana, I'm loving the poetry. I'm like, I should tell them this analogy, and I should tell them this analogy. And it's interesting how the mind gets used to. Start reading back the Ramayana. Ramayana is extremely poetry. Mahabharata wasn't. Mahabharata is intense story. But Ramayana, whichever version you use, the Kamba Ramayana, the Tulsi Ramayana, even Valmiki has a fair bit of poetry in it. And written as a poem. Bharat may be more as an epic, but Ramayana definitely written as a poem. And so, what was I saying? This grief that Bharat sees, and when he gets into Ayodhya, he knows something's amiss, and he goes straight to Mother Kaike's palace because he thinks that's where Dashrath Maharaj will be. It's already an out, right? Like that it, and then there's the sudden stark difference of Dashrath Maharaj was in Kaike's palace because that's where he loved to be, and that's where everything went wrong also. And when he gets to Mother Kaike's palace, like, she's so happy. And it's like this thorn amidst these beautiful roses because it doesn't fit. It's not sitting right with him that she's so happy and she's doing his aarti and she's, welcome back. And then suddenly she notices that Bharat's not happy. And so her first question is everything okay yet? Okay, yeah. Like, are my brothers well? My family well? It doesn't even occur to her that Bharat's unsettled about this home. Like, her first concern is, if Bharat's not happy, why? Was there something wrong there? She's not even acknowledged the heartache that is being felt by the loss of Dashrath Maharaj or Ayodhya's grief for Ram going. And this is, you're making faces, but this is delusion. Sometimes we do these youth camps, teenage camps, we do these adults camps, but especially with the teenage camps, they fall horribly, terribly in infatuation. It's not love. It's infatuation. And then their behavior completely changes. But they think they're acting normal. And they think you can't guess that they have now totally besotted, infatuated. And we looking at it and it's so evident, and they so completely deluded that they are behaving inappropriately now, or they're behaving, like immaturely. They just can't see it. In this state of delusion, we can't see that it's so evident to everyone else how deluded we are. And it's interesting how we believe we can hide things. When people are nasty, and some do hide it, but not for long. And when people are manipulative, or when people are scheming, people are, they can't be hidden. Whoever we are, we can't be hidden. And it's such delusion that we think we can hide things from other people. But here, KK is not even trying to hide anything. She's just oblivious to everybody else's sorrow because she's in her little bubble of, yay, I succeeded. Because she did, right? Bharat's going to be king. And so there's this sense of, it doesn't matter. And so finally Bharat says, yes, everything is fine at Mother at KKR and with uncle and all of them. But it's here that I'm concerned about. What's happened here? And then she suddenly thinks, oh, yes. Well, unfortunately, King Dashrath has died. And it's like this afterthought, the way she's saying it. And poor Bharat gets to hear his father. And really, Bharat is so incredibly affectionate. He's just very, very loving. So much love for father, so much love for mother. but anyone, right? It's a parent, like you, when you hear that you've lost them. And it's said in this casual way. And then KK said, but there's no need to grieve because he lived a good life. He was a great king. And so really, Bharat, it's all okay. Like everyone's time comes and his time has come. And so it's fine. But yes, even though what she said is true, everyone's time does come. And when they've lived a good life, there's no need to grieve too much. You don't say it in the second breath. You give them at least 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to actually assimilate this knowledge. But in KK's world, she's succeeded in getting the kingdom and securing her spot, and now everything's gone well, and Bharat's come, and so the plan should get executed. But Bharat's sad. No, he shouldn't be sad. Like, I'm not sad. We've got what we want. He shouldn't be sad. Again, delusion, the inability to see. And so, interesting way to understand delusion. In our head, we come up with this whole bunch of shoulds. The world should be this way. People should be happy about this. He should take up the position to rule the kingdom. But should's an interesting word, isn't it? Because we all know, we say it all the time, I should, but. But is so, but and should get along very great. They're constantly hanging out. Because shoulds don't work. Even as a word in terms of psychology, to use the word should doesn't work. The minute I say I should wake up early, it's not going to work. That very word kind of guarantees it's not going to work. If I say it's extremely beneficial to wake up early, that will work. I should wake up early, setting yourself up for failure. It's just not going to work. And delusion is a whole bunch of shoulds. And that's why it's delusion, because it's not going to work. And yet we see it as this is how we anticipate it's going to be. And our thinking can be so small, or maybe small is not the right word. Our thinking can be so closed. We can't even see another possible option. Bharat will be happy. In KK's head, I got the kingdom for Bharat. He's going to be happy. She cannot even conceive that he won't be happy. And you can see this with parent-children relationship all the time. Parents thinking child will be happy if this. And vice versa. Child thinking I'll do this and my parents will be so happy. And it just doesn't work, right? There was that incident in the Mahabharata when Krishna asked Duryodhana, do you want kingdom or do you want my army or do you want me? And Duryodhana chose the army, and he was walking back thinking Bhishma's going to be so proud of me. like interesting in our head that we can't see how the other person is not going to react the way in my head we think they're going to react. Delusion. Like KK is in this incredible bubble of delusion. But what's important is when we see this bubble of delusion that KK is in, we can see it clearly. And the point here is that we can be in that bubble. We can be in the exact same bubble that KK is in, where we cannot fathom. And this is why it's so important to have gurus, so important to have elders who are well-wishers, who are wise, who when they say, we should, underline word should, listen. But we don't always, right? Why? Because we're in this bubble. But the more we read the Puranas, the more we see KK's delusion, the more we can see Duryodhana's delusion. Hopefully, that's a reminder to us that I could be in a bubble. If elders who are well-wishers, who are wise, is saying something else, listen. Because I need to get out of this bubble of delusion that I am in. And Vashishta was there to guide all of them, not just Dashrath Maharaj and Ramchandraji and Bharat, who we're going to see now, but all the queens as well. And Queen Kaushalya didn't need the guidance. She was pretty wise on her own. But Guru was there for the whole, he was the family guru, like to guide all of them. And there were so many others, the ministers that were there. And Ayodhya was such a wealthy kingdom, not just in money, but in the strength of the people that Ayodhya had, the talent, the intelligence, the resources. Okay, so here KK is saying, oh yes, your father died. Like don't worry about that too much. And I got the kingdom for you. And then Bharat says, you got the kingdom for me? And now he's really confused. Poor guy hasn't had time to completely assimilate that. His father has passed away. And now suddenly he's so confused because, what do you mean you got the kingdom for me? And so, okay, mother, please tell me from the start what happens. And here you see KK's delusion, because she happily narrates everything she did without any kind of deceit to make herself look good. Because in her head, she's good. Like, you'd only hide if you realize how horrible it is. But she doesn't hide anything from Bharat. She tells him everything she did. Like, in a way of like, aren't you so proud of me? And of course, the more Bharat is listening, the more his heart is breaking, and the more his world is shattering into 1,000 people, because for Bharat, who just had so much love for just everyone, and he can see so clearly that her actions has torn this family apart. And that's the first thing he says to her. You've ruined this family. What was a heaven, you've turned into hell. And then the Bharat of Tulsi Ramayana is very, very, very sentimental. Bharat was sentimental in all the Ramayans, but Tulsi Ramayana is extra sentimental. And he says, like, why was I even born? Then he says, no, why were you born? You should never have been born. And okay, if you were born, you should never have become a mother, because someone like this cannot be a mother. Someone who destroys like this cannot be a mother. And so actually what he's saying is very, very insulting. But when you're reading it, you kind of like totally, yes, Bharat, you tell her. And then he continues to say, what horrible thing have I done that I was born as your son? And I have to be the cause for Ramchandraji being sent away. I cannot understand what horrible sin I have done that I am sitting here listening to you saying you did all of this in my name. And then he tries to reason with her. Like, can you see how horrendous your actions were? Can you see that your actions led to father's death? Can you see that you've destroyed the kingdom? Can you see that? And maybe at this point, KK's bubble starts bursting, because this is not the reaction that she was expecting. But there's kind of like her holding on to hope. No, no, Bharat, I did this for you. And Mantra and I really thought it through. And so she slips there. Or maybe not deliberately, she didn't mean to hide it. She said it quite openly. Like I said, she hasn't hidden anything. And so she says that, it was Mantra that helped her to conceive this idea and to execute this idea. And that's so something in Bharat clicks that because KK loved Ramchandraji, that why would you listen to that? Why didn't you think for yourself? And like and so unfortunately for Mantra, it's just at that point where she walks into the room. And Shatrughan, who in the entire Ramayana, you just read his name in sentences. Shatrughan went with Bharat to the forest. Shatrughan went with Bharat here. Shatrughan. The messenger arrived at Kekaya and met Bharat and Shatrughan. This is Shatrughan's shining moment in the entire Ramayana, where Shatrughan does something. Has his own scene. He's listening to Mother KK tell Bharat everything, and then he's seeing Bharat's pain. Now you must remember, he too is a brother. He too loves Ramchandraji. But of course, his entire loyalty is to Bharat. And now Bharat's in pain. Like Bharat's heart is broken and world is shattered. And so for Shatrughan, there's so much anger. Like, you did this to my Bharat. And so the minute he sees Mantra, he's ruthless. Physically, at that point in time, we saw earlier that Ramchandraji didn't even want to shoot. What was her name? Taraka, because she was a woman. And here, Mantra, who's like a motherly figure that's helped growing them up, Shatrughan just physically hits, like throws her, hits her, so that she falls onto the floor. And then it's very clearly said, kicks while she is down. You can imagine the anger that he was feeling for him to do that when they brought up in a culture where they won't even raise their voice. I mean, with Mantra, the four of them did tease her. So if you think about any large family dynamics, and then there's that one quirky aunt who's always complaining and always trying to get you into trouble with your parents, and it's the one that points out, and then so the kids will tease, mimic, and so they did. That's there's stories of it continuously, where these four boys would mimic Mantra, or they'd hide her, whatever she was fond of, right? Like if she happily got some new shawl, they'll go and hide the shawl. And just trouble her. Like kids like to tease, kids like to trouble. And sometimes it can be so innocent and normal. But for that person, they get so upset. And then for the kids, they thinking she's so quirky, how can we not tease her? So how each one of us just see only what we see. And for Mantra, it's like, they tormenting me. And I have to, my revenge. Then her revenge got to this point of exiling Ram. Part of her revenge for people tormenting her. And why would they torment her? Because of the quirkiness of her character. But we don't see that. We don't see that when people are doing things to us, there's something we do. We only see people are doing things to us. And so even though they teased Mantra, they were still respectful and treated her as an elder. And here Shatrughan physically beats, hits, kicks, anger he felt. And here in terms of symbolism, it's so beautiful. The symbolism of this is so beautiful. So mantra is that selfishness in our heart that makes us insensitive to other people's pains, just as long as we get what we want. We can see, right? In the story, it's so clear. When we sing the Ramayana, it's so clear. Mantra is that selfishness in our hearts. Remember, everything is inside us. The story of the Ramayana is outside, but everything that is happening in the Ramayana is happening inside us. And Shatrughan, it's so beautifully explained that we have Bhagwan, and then all the devotees or those that are serving Bhagwan is their das. Das means servant. And so Bharat is considered Ram's das. Bharat we'll see as the story of the Ramayana go, and since we already know the story, he will serve Ramchandraji. And he has already been serving Ramchandraji, enjoyed serving Ramchandraji, wants to serve Ramchandraji. But Shatrughan is serving Bharat. Just the way Lakshman is serving Ram, Shatrughan is serving Bharat. And so it's the das of the das. And so Shatrughan represents humility. Because even to be the servant of someone great, you get status. And like there's, like you can, because you have some in, like when you're the right hand of someone important, and people will come to you to say, what time is it free? Can you get me an appointment? I know there's, recently there's been a young brahmachari helping Swamiji out. And so now many people will message him saying, is Swamiji okay? Send me pictures of Swamiji. Like just by being a servant of someone who's really great, you also get the reflected glory, and you're nearby, so you get the praise, you get the food, you get the fame, you get the. But here, Shatrughan's serving the servant, so there's no glory. There's just serving, and everyone's happy to serve a master. To serve a servant, really that sense of not wanting any. That sense of doing it just for sheer love. And in serving Bharat, he's serving Ram. And so this immense humility is the only thing that can kill selfishness. So what's mantra? Selfishness in our heart that makes us insensitive. And Bharat beats it. Right? Just doesn't tolerate it. Has immense anger towards it and wants to destroy it. Shatrughan. Only Shatrughan can. Only that immense humility can destroy that selfishness in our hearts. Because if you look at what humility is, I'm not better. I'm not worse either. Humility doesn't mean I'm worse. But humility is, I'm not better. And in selfishness, we believe we're better. That's why I should get, right? I should get attention. Why? Because I'm better. I'm important. Even if it's not I'm better, I'm definitely more important, or I want to be more important. And so this incident of Shatrughan hitting mantra is very, very significant in the entire Ramayana. And like I said, it's Shatrughan's shining moment where he's doing something. And Bharat immediately stops him. Bharat's heart's very soft. He can't see mantra being hit. And probably she was hit enough. She's elderly and she's not physically strong. So whatever Shatrughan did was enough. So Bharat pulls him back. And then Bharat at this point says, well, sorry, before Shatrughan hit Manthara, Bharat said, whoever's responsible for this, you never want to see their face again. Talking to his mother, KK. And then Manthara comes in and she is responsible, but KK is as responsible. And Bharat has decided, I just never want to see you ever again. And so here we see that KK schemed for her happiness. And she loses everything. Everything she schemed to win, she loses. Whereas if Ramchandraji had become king, Ramchandraji would have given her importance. Because we'll see when they go to the forest to bring Ramchandraji back, Ramchandraji gives her importance. And yet she did so much to get that importance when she would have just gotten it. And because she did so much and hurt so many people in the process, she doesn't get even 1% of what it is that she schemed to get. Often we see this happening. Maybe with ourselves, we've seen it happen, where we've tried so hard and manipulated, and then it just blows up in our face. Or sometimes we see it with someone else. They've tried so hard, and then everything just blows up, and it's such a painful moment. And then, so here too, this idea of so much of this part of the Ramayana is actually so much of the Ramayana is to help us to remember to gracefully accept whatever comes to us. Like Ramchandra is sent into the forest, gracefully accept going into the forest. Day before, he was told to become king, gracefully accept being king. You have to marry Sita, gracefully accept marrying Sita. Like, so good things, gracefully accept. And when it's an unpleasant thing, gracefully accept. And so we'll see here Kaushalya Maya. KK has done all of this. And Kaushalya Maya accepts. This is what is. Not entirely, but there is a lot of acceptance. Bharat here will a little bit play with it. So, I never want to see you ever again, Bharat says, walks away. And he really does maintain that. I remember reading somewhere, now this is not, this is interpretation. There's no scene in any Ramayana where this is actually said. But years and years later, Ramchandraji has come back to Ayodhya. Ramchandraji is now king. And in Mother KK's palace, there's only 2-3 servants looking after her. And nobody's business. Still, even after all these years. And every now and then, Ramchandraji will check she's okay. But no, Bharat never did ever go back to her. And so I remember reading this person's perception of KK sitting in this palace some 20 years later, thinking, why am I still alive? And that consequence of the action of what she did, just so many years later, even though Ram's now back and Ram's the king, she still faces this empty palace, where when her palace used to be the one that was the most buzzing, because Dashrath Maharaj would visit so often. And so Bharat's resolve to leave, Bharat's clarity of thought, and Bharat's truth to his rather I should say Bharat's steadiness to his truth, adherence to his truth. And in some Ramayans, it is said that Bharat says, "You are no longer my mother." Not in every Ramayana. In some Ramayans, he just says, "I never want to see you again," and leaves. But in some Ramayans, he has said, "You are no longer my mother." And he goes to Mother Kaushalya's palace. And now again, there's slight differences, not very slight differences. In some Ramayans, it is said Kaushalya Maya is grieving and she sees Bharat and she thinks for a moment, oh, why would he come to me? Just for this moment, because she's missing Ram so much. But interestingly, this is the only part in the Ramayana where we read that Bharat looked a lot like Ram. And brothers looking similar is normal, but actually it's not mentioned anywhere else. But here, Kaushalya Maya looks up, and because Bharat looks so much like Ram, for a moment she thinks Ram. And then she thinks, oh no, it's Bharat. And so there's some Ramayans where there's this slight initial apprehension towards Bharat. In Tulsi Ramayana, Mother Kaushalya is worried about Bharat, that he's going to be so upset when he finds out. And she's more worried about Bharat than she is worried about Ram being in the forest. And so there's no ever any apprehension or resistance to Bharat. But even in the ones where there is, it's just very initial. It's just very slight. And so Bharat comes into Mother Kaushalya's palace. And if there wasn't a little bit of apprehension, it's very temporary. And then they hugging and they both crying. And Bharat finally gets to process that he's lost his father and his brother's been exiled because of this continuous talking. And Bharat says to Mother Kaushalya this exact same thing, that what sin have I done? I must be such a horrible sinner that I was used as the reason for all of this to happen. And this is where Mother Kaushalya says that death will happen and it's nobody's fault. And I think I'm emphasizing this line because there's a lot of lines that are spoken, which I don't emphasize. But so often when I am working with different families, people blame themselves for death of loved ones. Their family members ill and then they second guess, if I had done this, if only I had. Sometimes financially, sometimes. And here we see Mother Kaushalya saying it. Now please remember, Mother Kaushalya is a very learned woman. She has done a lot of tapas and she is wise. And her exact line is, in the flow of time, there are events that are beyond our comprehension and control. No one can be blamed. So this whole thing about blaming. Here, Bharat's blaming KK for exiling Ram, but also blaming himself for being born. He literally uses the word, had I not been born, she couldn't have done this. So first he blames Mother KK, how could she do this? Then he blames himself. She did it for me, so I'm to blame. And Mother Kaushalya's words are so brilliant. There's no point in blaming anyone. There is no one to. Things happen. As per karmas, as per the flow of time. Like people getting old. Just happen. Can't blame anyone. People die. Happen. You can't blame anyone. There's certain things where you just can't blame. And there are certain things where a person is used. KK was used as the instrument for this to happen. And so there's no point in blaming her. But it's her fault. It's done. And then later on, Sage Vashishta says the exact same words. There's no point in blaming. Like death happens, don't blame. There's just no blame. Death just happens. And then Mother Kaushalya is interesting in Tulsi Ramayana. Like I said, sentiments. Sentiments are really played upon in Tulsi Ramayana. That Bharat is saying, how horrible I am, that all of this is my fault. And then Mother Kaushalya says, no, you love Ram and that cannot be doubted. And she uses all these poetic examples of how the as certain as the sun rises that you love Ram. There's no way that anyone would doubt you love Ram. But Dasharatha did it right. Without Ram, he gave up his life. How hard is my heart that I'm still alive? And so yeah, you see how grief. Like Mother Kaushalya is a wise woman. And she has such clarity when she's talking to Bharat. We'll see again later on also. That she speaks with great clarity when she's telling him in Bharat, now you have to be the king. This is, it's fine that you feel what you're feeling, but work still has to get done. And so you see that she guides beautifully and she has the wisdom. And even when Ram is being sent to the forest, she doesn't break down. Yeah. She understands that this is all the play of Maya because she knows who Ramchandraji is. And then grief. And then now suddenly she's not sounding wise anymore. And it's so interesting how emotions can do that to us. Like we have the wisdom, but emotions can make us lose sight of the wisdom. And so it's not that emotions won't come. When we living our life, the idea is to know it's the emotion that's talking. This is not me talking. This is sorrow talking. This is not me talking. This is anger talking. And where should we know this? In our own minds. Because we thinking these thoughts, right? Because Kaushalya Maya to be saying this, she's thinking these thoughts. And so when we are thinking thoughts, we should know, emotional thought. This thought is caused by this emotion. This is not truth. This is not what I know to be a way to see things. This is just me thinking this because of this emotion that exists in my mind. This is emotional intelligence. This is maturity. It's not that we won't have emotions. And it's not that the emotion doesn't make us feel. And it does not even that the emotion doesn't make us think certain way. But to be able to know that this thinking right now is the emotion. And so, yeah, we see that Mother Kaushalya, who's got such clarity, has also fallen into the sense of life is so empty. And, this is a normal for the feeling of grief. She's grieving her son. She's also now grieving her husband. And so naturally, the feeling of grief is empty. Something's being taken away from me, and so I feel empty. And the natural reaction to feeling empty is to want to get rid of it in whatever way I think will get rid of it. And so sometimes it's like, I shouldn't be it, then I won't feel this. Even though that's no solution. It's just the emotion that makes us think that and feel that. And then here also with emotional thinking, it will pass. We have to remember that the emotion will pass and this emotional thinking will pass. And because all of us at some stage do go through grief, I've spent a little bit of time on that. Okay. So they console each other. Bharatji is consoling Kaushalya, saying, no, if you disappear, who would we have to turn to? Who would I turn to? You the only one I have left. Ramchandraji is in the forest, and I'm not going to go back to Mother KK's palace. Dasharat Maharaj is not here. How can you go? You have to be here for me. And Kaushalya is consoling Bharat that Ram would never doubt you. Ram knows you love him. But naturally, you can't escape the feeling of pain and grief. And so Bharat is feeling pain, and Mother Kaushalya is feeling pain. But it does help, definitely helps to have that other person there. And it helps even more when the other person is grieving the same thing you're grieving. That feeling of not alone certainly does help in grief. And so now Sage Vashishta comes, and Dasharat Maharaj's last rites have to be done before anything else. Right? The body has been kept embalmed. And here we see how much science there was that they could embalm a body to keep it from putrefying. And so the description given is it's kept in ghee. We know ghee to be a preservative, don't we? So it's taken out of the ghee, and the last rites are done. And the description of how sincerely Bharat does everything. Really, you see here in this section, when you read this section about Bharat doing the last rites, you really feel him as a son to a father, and that love that he has for his father. When he's with Mother Kaushalya again, you really feel him as a son, maybe more so than we ever see Ramchandraji. Even though Ramchandraji is described as the ideal son, we don't see it as much. I mean, we know Dasharat Maharaj loved him, but here when you read how he's doing the pujas and, the sincerity, like if you, put little bit rice, Bharat put so much rice. It's like, no, nothing little bit for my father. He should get lots. And then, chant the mantra as you say as you pour the ghee into the honey. And he so diligently made sure he pronounced everything absolutely correctly. Didn't rush through anything. It's the sincerity of his effort. You see this sense of duty. You see a lot of sense of duty in Bharat, but you also see so much sincerity, so much affection. Affection in wanting the other person's well-being. And so now all the last rites are done, and Vashishtaji the next morning now calls court in order. So king has to rule, and the court has to be in order. Is that right? I might not have changed my watch after I flew back. Oh, yeah, I'm still on India time. Okay. I thought that wasn't right. What's the point of having a watch if it's not in the right time zone? Okay, so Bharat called to court. Court has to be in order. And Vashishtaji presents this case. We don't have a king because Dasharat Maharaj has died. We don't have a king because Ramchandraji has gone to the forest. Then he uses such beautiful logic. Dasharat Maharaj had two boons, and one was to send Ramchandraji to the forest. And so Ramchandraji, being the good, dutiful son that he was, he kept up that boon. The second boon is Bharat become the king. Now you should also be a dutiful son, and now you have to fulfill the second boon. You have to become the king. And it's all fine because Ramchandraji loved you, and Ramchandraji was very happy that you were going to become the king. And we know that you are capable You have been studying all together. You have all the skills and wisdom to become a king. And so everything's good. And so now, Bharat, please, we have to arrange your coronation and you have to become the king. And here again, the sweetness of Bharat really, sometimes it's more evident when you see it when you see things being played out, you can see a person's character. So the first thing he does is he apologizes that I'm not listening to you. Like Guru has said, and Guru has given such beautiful logic, and Guru's right. So I'm sorry that I'm saying something instead of yes. Because once Guru has spoken, elders have spoken, we should do. And so Bharat says, I know that I should do, and what you said is right. So I'm apologizing that I'm even saying something further, except yes. You know what? I've read that before, but when I read it today again, I just thought, how perfect. How perfect is like this, and here we see this sense of das, because there's such humility. Like there's no sense of, I am king, listen to me. There is, you are Guru and I should listen to you. And for not just saying yes to what you just said, I'm already apologizing. But I have to speak because my heart is so heavy. And that's where Vashishta talks about grief. It says death happens. And here, Vashishta ji says, actually, even though you're grieving the loss of your father, you should not grieve death itself. This is an interesting difference. Yeah. What's the difference? I miss the person I love is fine. We can miss the person we love. There's no issue with that. To be upset that they die is different. Death is not to be grieved. The loss of the person I love is fine. Why? Because death is natural. And King Dasharath lived a good life. So in death, nothing bad will happen. So that you can't grieve death. If we grieve death, we're thinking something bad's happened to them. But nothing's bad happened to them. One, it's natural. Two, depending on how that person lived their life, their death will be equally glorious and comfortable, equally meritorious, what's the word? Full of merit. So when someone's lived a good life, the consequences of their actions can only be good. And so what are you grieving? They're going to go to a good place, they're going to experience good things. If someone lives not such a good life, you can little bit grieve more. Because we know that then they will face those consequences, but most will do some good. Right? And that's one of the reasons we do the Shraddha Pujas. Whatever shortcoming they had in their life, we do punya on their behalf to help them get a little bit more credit points. And so Sage Vashishta says that. And then Bharat says, no, that's not what is making my heart happy. My heart cannot accept that I have not asked forgiveness from Ramchandra. Father has done, and yes, I have to accept that. But Ramchandra ji is here, and it was and actually even when he spoke to Queen Keke, when she first says Dasharatha Maharaj has died, he said, how unfortunate it is that I wasn't here to hear Dasharatha Maharaj say, Ramchandraji, please look after Bharat. Like he wanted in his heart that, because Ramchandraji is the eldest, right? And then you get handed over. Like you belong to father and then you get Nayu, and even as the king. Now, it's Ramchandraji's job to look after. I have to be serving him. It's just not sitting well with me that he's still here and I haven't seen him. And I haven't apologized. And I haven't been able to seek his blessings. How can I take this throne when Ramchandraji is here? And I know that Father's wish was that it goes to Ramchandraji. And then Bharat talks about the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. So when Ramchandraji followed that a promise has to be kept, it's following the letter of the law. Promises should be kept. Okay? He kept his promise, and so it's following the letter of the law. And even Bharat explains this, that even though some people might have said that, he didn't have to, should Ramchandraji not have gone to the forest, at some point in time, people would have said, see, he wanted the kingdom. And so it was important for Ramchandraji to follow the letter of the law because it was saving this family's name. Because the Raghukula dynasty had this is the same, right? Raghukula Rita Chadachalayaya Pradachaya Vachananajaya. In the Raghukula dynasty, that adherence to truth was utmost. And so if anyone even suspected Ramchandraji didn't go to the forest because he wanted to be king, so bringing down the name of the whole lineage, bringing down the name of Dasharatha Maharaj. And so Ramchandraji had to follow the letter of the law and the spirit of the law of keeping the integrity of the family together. But in my case, I don't have to follow the letter of the law because I'm the one to gain. People will not fault me for not taking the kingdom. They can fault Ramchandraji for not taking the kingdom, but they wouldn't fault me for giving the kingdom back to Ramchandraji. And suddenly, everybody in the court, everything was very gloomy. There was this acceptance that this is what it has to be. Suddenly now everyone's listening to Bharat with more raptured attention, like, oh, really, where's he going with this? And Bharat says, I think we should leave first thing tomorrow morning and go to Ramchandraji and bring him back. Because what Dasharatha Maharaj wanted was for Ramchandraji to be king. And so following this letter of the Lord is following that he gave a boon. But following the spirit of the law is, I should do what my father wanted. I should live that life that would make my father happy. Even now, from wherever he is, if he sees that Ramchandraji has come back, and when Bharat talks, he never leaves Sitaji out. Every time he says Ramchandraji, Sitaji is there too. That if Dasharatha Maharaj sees that Sita Devi, he always called her Devi, and Sri Ram came back, Dasharatha Maharaj will smile from there. Poor Lakshman didn't get mentioned, but Sita ji gets mentioned every single time. I won't rest until I see Sita Devi and Ramchandraji. And Sita's name's always taken first. Always, always, always. From Bharat's mouth, huh? And considering he loves Ram so much, he definitely does. Sitaji is never forgotten. In his memory of Ram, Bharat never forgets Sitaji. And so now suddenly the whole court is so happy. They love that he has said this, and so they're so excited, and so they all agree tomorrow morning before the sun rises, we shall all leave and go to the forest and bring Ramchandraji. And so we see that Bharat had this immense grief. And even though there was a lot of emotional thinking in the grief, because in fact, if you read, there's so much self-condemnation. And it was, I think it was more each era has a way of speaking and expressing a sentiment. And we'll see it in the way that Mother Kaushalya said, there can't be a greater sinner than me. Bharat says, there can't be a greater sinner than me. Only KK doesn't say it. Later on, she does say it. Dashat Maharaj had also said it, right? I was really wondering, because in today's world, when we put ourselves down, I mean, it's a sentiment in Bhakti Shastra, Dina Bhav, that I am nothing, nothing, nothing. I am not even worth the dust of your feet, Bhagwan. I am less worth nothing. That there's that sense, there is that Dina Bhav in Bhakti. And you definitely see that the Tulsidas ji brings out that Dina Bhav in the way that Bharatji speaks and in the way Mother Kaushalya speaks. And I was thinking about that because in today's world, that thinking myself to be nothing is low self-esteem. Whereas Mother Kaushalya and Bharat don't have low self-esteem. And so it's a different sentiment. In Bhakti, that thinking I am nothing is in comparison to Bhagwan's glory and brilliance. It's like that firefly can't shine in the light of the sun. That Dina Bhav is just so blinded by the brilliance and glories of Bhagwan that I can't possibly praise myself in any way or form. I am nothing in light of that brilliance. I think when we read it without that context, in today's world, it's this, our self-talk has to be helped. And so the self-talk should be seeing the brilliance of Bhagwan in today's world, rather than the insignificance of myself. But from another point of view, I totally get how important it is to see how insignificant we are. Because everything can go on just perfectly fine without us. And our value is only that we serve. Even that can go on without us. And so from one point of view, we really do need to see our insignificance. And from another point of view, we don't want to end up with low self-esteem. So focusing on Bhagwan's brilliance. Okay. We'll pause here for you. We started a tad late, so I think we've done it for now. Yeah? Maybe a bit more, which is good. You have a question.
Yes. How do you grieve a person who's dead, who died, he lost to death? And
how do you grieve without grieving death? You lost the person to death, but you're not grieving death. So how do you grieve without grieving death? Is the question. So there's acceptance that death happens. It's going to happen at some point, right? And so death has happened.
Sorry.
No problem. Yes. Death will happen at some point. And so there's acceptance that death happens. Whereas people sometimes get upset. Why did they die? You don't even get angry. And in the sense that we'll say, they were so young. Why? Like, they shouldn't have died so young. I wanted more time with them. Then you're grieving death. You're not just missing the person you miss. That's the difference. Or they shouldn't have died. Other people can die, but my loved one shouldn't die. But we do feel that. A lot of people feel that. And so not grieving death is acceptance that death happens. Missing the person is normal and natural. Does that make sense? Does that help clarify?
And still.
But you lose them to death.
We're not going to see them again.
We're not going to see them again in that body and in this body. We don't know where, when, how. Not that I'm going to give you a romantic notion of saying every jiva you love you will meet again also. But we do crisscross because love never dies, right? We do crisscross. Not that you're going to be born in the same family again and again and again. Also, people think that this bundle of jivas will only ever get born into this family. There's no such thing, people. I know I'm breaking many hearts when I say that. But why should you love only those people, right? You can love so many people. No, I want this one. Okay. So how to match the karmas they have to face, the karmas you have to face. How many years I spend in heaven, how many years I spend in hell, how many years they have to spend in heaven and hell. It's a mathematical feat to make everything coordinate at the right point in time. It does happen. It does happen. Not that it doesn't. No need to hold on to that. But what am I saying? In this physical body, I will not see that physical body again. Yes. And that is because of the things. But that's the acceptance. That's what acceptance of death is. That this is just the way it is. And this is what I have to go through. It's like when the weather changes. We were in Siddhaveri last week. It was so hot one day, and then there's hailstorm the next day. When hailstorm comes, you accept. Storm has come. You go inside if you can. Or when it's 42 degrees because it's May in India, it's acceptance. This is just the way it is. So there's acceptance that death is. Full stop. There's nothing after. I'll miss all. When there was love, I will miss. But I can't blame for existing. It is subtle.
Bharat and Shatrughan were meeting to mantra. Obviously, they were coming, like even Shatrughan was coming from forward, and was coming from the place of forward down. But the things they said were. So, does that, so consequences will still happen for those actions.
So what Bharat says to Mother KK is hurtful, and Shatrughan hitting Mantra is hurtful, and it's come out of their emotions. Will there be consequences for that? Yeah. Every action will have a consequence. But it can also be seen as KK's consequence. And in Bharat and Shatrughan's case, their hearts are very clean. They're reacting to events that are unjust, and they are speaking truth. Some of it's a bit can be perceived as mean, yes, cruel. I'm no longer your son. But in Bharat's case, it was statement of fact. In Bharat's case, more than I am being mean to you because you hurt me, in Bharat's thinking it is, this is an injustice. And you need to know it is an injustice. So the consequences of that thing that KK's hurt isn't the same as me just insulting someone. Bharat is talking from a point of, you've caused injustice. Yeah. So it wouldn't be as strong. The karma of the hurt that's caused to Mother KK wouldn't be as strong. Mm-hmm. And his intention is not to hurt Mother KK. His intention is for her to see the injustice and see his pain. You've caused me pain, rather than intentional insulting Mother. Remember, in karma, the intention counts. Oh, one more question.
Just an observation. So is it that Shatrughan doesn't have any scenes of further symbolism of his humility?
Shatrughan not,
intentional?
Shatrughan not having seen is a symbol of his humility. Yes, it is intentional. But I've mentioned this before, in the way that the Ramayana is written, it's not, there's the continuity of story more than there is a emphasis on characters. In the way the Mahabharata is written, you can really see intricacies of character and plot. In the way the Ramayana is written, it's not written in the same way. Now when you read the Ramayana, well, Ramayana comes under Itihasa, so does Mahabharata, history. So it's written more as a historical story than like a bringing out of the suspense to this event, and then the plot twist, and then that's not so much there. Even though there is a lot of drama story, it's not written like that. And neither is the Mahabharata. It's just that the Mahabharata was so spicy that it
maybe it's Mahabharata, like, so it's a story of whole, and this is Ramayana, like story of Ram.
Yeah, so Mahabharata is many stories, and Ramayana is Ramchandraji's stories.
It's like you're following that one character peacefully. So whatever impacts that one character.
Yeah, it's not written as a drama. And so you'll see even a lot of, not at that much, even there's not incidences where you can like bring out Ramchandraji. It's like through in and through, he's the hero. There is dialogue, there are incidences, but it's not quite the same way as bringing, not the way as when you write a story and you bring the hero alive, it's not written that way. Even though it's been rewritten by people like Sant Tulsidas-ji with the intention of bringing Ramchandraji's character and glory out, it's still not quite the same. It is still itihasa. Yeah, but yes, Shatrughan is not given much limelight.
So Mahabharata is not Itihasa.
Mahabharata is also itihasa. Yeah. And yes, when you read it, it's not this, there's a little bit more spice. Like she said, there's so many more characters and there's so many more subplots and there's motives and agendas and
Generations.
and so many more generations in the Mahabharata. It's true. There's 4 or 5 generations in the Mahabharata. Ramayana, it's Ramchandraji is being focused.
So Bhishma Pitama must easily gone through these 400-500 years of his life.
In the Mahabharata, Bhishma Pitama goes through 4 generations, yes.
I counted one day, I thought he must be at least 450 years old.
No, Krishna was 450 years. Bhishma Pitama was easily 1,000 years. Krishna was only 400 years. Yeah. Anyway, we're talking about Ramayana. Even you guys love going back to Mahabharata. Although I didn't bring it up. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Bhavale Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om